Hey everybody, welcome to the Wheel of Rock!
Woo! Woo! Okay. Well, we got a fun one here. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Wheel of Rock. Our side episode, or whatever you want to call it, our spin-off. We are doing Van Halen today, one of the great bands of all time, and you wouldn't believe the fighting that has already happened among this crew about the band Van Halen, which is going to be a lot of fun. So let's see. So what we did before, of course, let me introduce everybody. We have Nick, Kyle, and Vic.
Hey, everybody.
And before, to try and make this fair, we did a spinning of the Wheel of Names with just our names in it to see the order. So the order is going to be Kyle first, then Nick, then myself, and then Vic, to make it interesting. I'm going to bring up the wheel now properly. There we go.
Yay!
And don't forget to announce the album so that our audio fans can hear.
Yeah.
Understood.
Perhaps one of the greatest rock band logos of all time, no? I mean, it's got to be top 3.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. And how many notebooks has that been scribbled on, you know?
It's iconic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, all right. So, of course, Van Halen, we're including the 12 studio albums, the first 6 with David Lee Roth, and then they had 4 with Sammy, and then Van Halen 3 with Gary Sharon, and then the last one, Different Kind of Truth, with David Lee Roth returning. And you know what? I thought that album was a lot longer ago than it was, but it was, I think, 2012 or something. Yes. That's not actually that far away, really. Yeah, let's go ahead and spin the wheel. What did we decide? Kyle, you're first. Okay, here we go.
Well, let's go. Spin that wheel.
Wait. First, we have a guest announcer here.
I'm only gonna tell you one time.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
It will
Dave.
soon
Thank
be
you for that,
revealed
Dave.
how we each feel about the eras of Van Halen. So I quite liked that.
We'll get into that.
Balance. That is fantastic.
This was the album that we were talking about.
It couldn't have worked out any better. I swear.
Okay, so I get to go with Balance, and I'll give sort of my quick thoughts on Balance, which may not be as extreme as you were thinking, Vic, but we literally decided who would get to go first, second, third, and fourth in fear of how this album might be ranked. But I will say this album came out like, 95? Is that right? Yeah, January 95. Yep. And this was like primetime CD era. My older brother, Phil, loved Van Halen, and I grew up in and around Van Halen, and I listened to this album all the time, playing NBA Live 95 on my Sega Genesis and NBA Jam, and lots of
that is 95
classic. Very, very, very 95. I have those memories cemented in my brain. And I really have a certain affinity and nostalgia for this album. I love the Seventh Seal. I love how it starts out. I love the guitar tone on this album. The drums sound great, as they always do. I mean, Sammy has a great and strong voice. However, this CD, this album, whatever you want to say, to me, it runs out of steam, and it does feature 2 of the cheesiest cheeseball Sammy Hagar songs of all time. Can't Stop Loving You, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. Those are both pretty darn near absolute saccharine. Yeah. So for me, this is either a C tier, D tier album. On my personal listing, I had it as a C tier, but just in the spirit of the wheel and just the fun of it all, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in D tier. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in D tier.
You're a D tier man. So
I love the D tier. If they could all go there. No, I'm just kidding. I love Van Halen. I like this album, but I think it's somewhere on that C-D split, and why not put it in D? So there you go.
Part of the interesting thing about this whole ranking is, the age-old argument, Van Halen, Van Hagar. And, I've always felt that they are 2 distinct bands sharing common musicians, really different sounds. There's familiarity between both because of the obvious, Alex and Eddie just bringing that sound. in my ranking and everything else, Balance is my least favorite Hagar albums. It does have two of my favorite Van Halen songs, Between Seventh Seal and Feeling. Very epic, just over the top production. But it's D is a bit of a pill to swallow. But yeah, we gotta let things settle down.
Yeah,
I am last,
I think the problem with the album, as you say, Vic, is that it drags. CD era, a little bit too long, and for the uninitiated, for anybody who's not a fan, it's a long listen, and there are too many moments that are not good, which outbalance the moments that are good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in a position now between us that we get to review records. We get a lot of things early now. We get to listen to stuff for the website and all that, which is amazing. But going back to that era, obviously younger, not involved in any of this, and the CDs, you really relied on those singles that came out. And I was very much into Van Halen. Like, I was a big fan of the previous album, the Carnal Knowledge album. Before that, I liked the Van Hagar stuff. So I was encouraged with a new album coming out, but I was so disappointed in the first two singles, Can't Stop Loving You and Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, that I didn't even buy the album.
Wow.
One of my roommates did.
Oh,
and then I heard it and I was like, yeah, I don't like any of this. I'm with you guys. Seventh Seal was a really good song, and Feeling closes it out really well. But yeah, between the rest of it, it just nothing really. The songwriting just wasn't there, man. It just wasn't. It just was all. The guitar playing's great. It really seemed like almost that was, let's just let Eddie do his thing. And if you want to just listen to him shred and the guitar tone, maybe that's something that the album sort of relies on. But the songwriting just was not there.
Well, I think they'd run out of steam at this point, and I think just emotionally we're sort of out of steam. And I think songwriting-wise, this is my general argument against Sammy Hagar era. Sorry, no offense, as I just feel like the songwriting gets thinner and thinner and thinner, especially by this album. But there are worse Dream Theater. There are worse Van Halen albums than this one, and maybe we'll come to that soon. So
okay, what'd I do? Oh, here we go. Okay, so who is next? Nick.
Prog Nick. Rock Nick.
Oh, help me, guys.
Hey.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, Van Halen II.
All right. Let me just preface this by saying, guys, I'm a Roth guy.
Same.
I just am. Always have been. I just, I think that he's an underrated songwriter. I think that his contribution to the songwriting really became obvious when he went solo for that time. And if you think about his return, well, he wrote some good songs even on his return. So for me, Van Halen II is an important album because it's the sophomore, right? And how were they going to follow up the magnificence of Van Halen I? Well, they kind of did. They stuck a little bit to a formula. There's no doubt about it. And there's a template feel to some of them, to some of the songs, but you got to say that very few bands could have followed up that incredible success with such a musically successful album. Now, for me, the best song, just because it's so accessible and shows a slightly lighter side of them, is Dance the Night Away. That was their big pop moment, and it really is 3 minutes of sort of sun-soaked beach melting, cotton candy kind of fun in the sun sort of vibe, which showed a lighter side to them. The worst song, in my opinion, is Women in Love, which kind of is very formulaic and sort of running with the devil repeated. But as a general effort, it's got to be said that Van Halen II, with Eddie now comfortably scintillating on the guitar yet again, is a great second album in anyone's book. I've got to say that it's not S tier, but I'm going to put it in A, not to be controversial, but because I think there's space for others in S tier. So I'm going to give Van Halen II an A.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't think it's an S tier album. I would be okay with A. Yeah, I think that's
I'm probably the outlier here. I think it's borderline SA. I think it's better than it gets credit for because it's so overshadowed by One. It's not better than One. I don't think there's any beating that. As Nick so eloquently described, it is, in a sense, a sort of repeat of that album that's not quite as good. But I think from song to song to song, with maybe a couple exceptions, I really like it. I find it actually a little bit preferable to the few albums that followed, even though most people seem to rank those a little higher. I just like the energy of it. It still as exciting as One, even though they've already been a band and already established themselves. I like the little interludes, like with Spanish Fly and so on. And I love Beautiful Girls. Like, I don't know, there's classic songs on this album. So again, borderline SA. I'm cool with it being an A personally. And what a heck of an album cover. I love that album cover. It's classic.
It's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a few songs on there that kind of just I don't really love. But yeah, I mean, it's classic stuff. It's cool. So, all right. I think we're good there. All right. This is me, I guess.
Let's see if this gets weird at any point. Ah, perfect.
Okay.
OU812.
OU812.
What a just tacky and disgusting album name. But anyway, I digress.
So this is an interesting one because if you would have asked me when I was, I guess, I don't know, how old was I when this was out? 12, 13, 14, something like that.
Yeah.
I guess. This would have sort of been A. Like, I was so into them like this whole period. Like, I loved all of this. And over time, it grew more and more just unlistenable. Just songs that I loved. I can't stomach. They sound so bad. Feel so good. Sound so bad. Like, you know what I mean? And When It's Love also just, man, I thought that was the greatest song when it was out. Like the greatest. And
Wow.
And now I can't listen to it. I like Mine All Mine, I think is really good. All Fired Up is good. Black and Blue is maybe my favorite song on it. Finish What You Started. It's a cool song. I like that.
I like that one.
Acoustic thing. Yeah. So, you know, it's okay. It's a fun record, but it's just weak in a lot of moments. I'm trying to think of where else.
Cabo Wabo
goes where.
sucks, I think, and that's such
Yeah,
a like
that's not a great song.
Sammy moment, a Sammy
Sucker in
thing.
a three-piece suit is terrible.
There's a bonus track, the Apolitical Blues, that is just very bad. So.
Oh, that's the Little Feat number, right?
Yeah, it's just
the album.
George. Yeah.
The album doesn't know what it wants to be.
There you go.
Is the thing. It's just all over the place.
Yep.
And in some cases, bands like Queen could pull that off, but this sounded like, I don't know, like, we're a rock band, but we also know we need to write some hit singles, so we're gonna throw those in there. And then we know we need a keyboard song, but we use the keyboard sound too much. Let's change the keyboard sound. Like, I don't know, it sounds all too thought about. Too, you know what I mean? I don't know. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with C. It's not a D tier.
Wow.
I think that's.
It's in my C tier.
Oof.
I think that's fair. I mean, it does have possibly Van Halen's worst moment on it, which is Feel So Good. I mean, Roth was complaining about too many keyboard undertones, and you know that was apparently part of the fight. But this one really stinks. I mean, it really does. It just gurgles along with that horrible synth sound and that horrible groove, and it just does not work. And for that reason alone, I think you're right, Roy.
Yeah, and it's weird for me to say it because again, there was a period where I was like jamming to this thing.
Look, when I was
you know what I mean?
When I was about your age, but 10 years later or whatever, I had the Van Halen like greatest hits or whatever, and it's just chock full of the Hagar era saccharine cheeseball factory songs, and I loved them. I mean, like loved them, but like that's the same age that people like boy bands and stuff. Like, I mean, in fairness, like that is 1986's 87 88's version of like boy band just schlock. It's just not great. So when I go back and listen to it now, I'm like, I liked that. I can't believe I liked that. But there are songs on this that stand up. I really think Finish What You Started is great. It has a feel, for me at least, from like 1984. But like, I love the acoustic thing. I love the vibe of that song. And none of it's bad. It doesn't congeal, as you said, like as a singular work that makes sense for me.
And then also, I mean, if you want to nitpick other things, the album title is ridiculous. And
yeah,
but by this point, how many times has that album cover been done by so many bands? Like, you couldn't have come up with anything else. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, the theory is the theory is that they picked that album title as a mockery of Dave Roth, because his album was called Eat 'Em and Smile. So this was OU812, and apparently that was a subtle dig.
Okay.
They should have taken the high road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Vic, this has been a tough start for you, buddy. I'm sorry.
You know, gosh, you guys are harsh. I
guys are mean.
I understand what you're saying.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
Yay!
Where are we?
Which one is it?
Oh,
I thought you were going to get.
That was so close. And then he doesn't even get to do anything.
4 Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. All right. Well, I love this album. But let's see what you do with it.
So we've got 3 in S, 3 in A, and then 2 for the rest of the tiers. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So this album, I'm trying to think. This is the first album that I saw Van Halen on tour, live in person. So I'm at
with
the
Alice in Chains.
It was at the Miami Arena. It was sometime in December. But it was a great show. I was so into them, and my brother was big time into Eddie. Gosh, I'm looking at the list of songs here. This is an album that was on repeat time and time again. Even the hits that were on MTV, were great. And gosh, I'm trying to think. This is not an S tier for me, but it's close. I'm going to put it in A. Love how it starts with Pound Cake. Judgment Day. I just love the beginning of that song.
Judgment Day is the best song. It may be my favorite Van Halen song. It's so great.
It's misspelled though, unfortunately, but go ahead. It's the UK spelling, not the US spelling. James Cameron got correctly a year later, but go ahead.
Shout out to Jeff. So Pleasure Dome, Dream Is Over.
Pleasure Dome is great.
Right now
is great.
316, which is his tribute to his newborn son, is really cool. And they close out with On Top of the World, a little bit of Sammy's cheesiness on the chorus, but it's just a great ending.
I like it.
I have an attachment to this album. It's for me, it was close to an S tier, but I think this is just a classic album all around, and that's why I like the shirt and the emblem and everything else.
I wouldn't expect it to end up in S necessarily, although I wouldn't argue it. But for me personally, it's an S tier album. It's a album I listen to once in a while, just regularly, just because I like it. I mean, I run around in and out. Like, the whole thing is what I like about it. It's the closest they came with the Hagar era to sounding at least kind of more raw and aggressive and not so focused on the synths and that kind of stuff. And so I think that was what works about it, So yeah, I'm glad. Good pick, Vic.
Well, thanks. I think Van Halen at this point was probably at his most mature in writing songs from beginning to end, and all the wild stuff that he was trying out with harmonics and everything else, always pushing it as he always had. But this album just was really, influential for me as far as just how much I liked Van Halen. OU812 was a bit of a dip for me, had a couple of great songs on it, but this one was kind of like, okay, they're
well, that's the other thing.
They're homed in
like
again.
We were saying, like where OU812 was just a schizophrenic mess.
Yeah.
This album is focused.
It's very focused. Yeah.
So all right, good. All right.
It also features one of my favorite track listing details of all time: Electric Drill on Pound Cake for Eddie Van Halen.
So, and that video, man. That video is something else.
But who did it first? The Electric Drill. Paul Gilbert did it first, didn't he?
Yeah.
On that first Mr. Big record.
Yeah. Good call. Good call. Steve Lukather apparently sang background vocals on Top of the World. Didn't know that. A little interesting nugget.
Well, we're getting all the Hagar stuff out of the way, aren't we?
5150. Okay.
Oh no. Okay.
You know, stop. You don't know what I'm going to do. So surprisingly, I have agreed with like the bulk majority of these rankings. Like I don't really find that I disagree. I think this will be an album that I probably see a little differently than the rest of you. I have seen 5150 ranked as high as like an S tier album, and to be fair, I don't see it like that at all. Yeah, I just don't. Not even a little bit. So,
my.
We want to talk cheese. We got to start with Dreams. Very, very, very cheesy.
The second favorite Van Halen song.
Oh my goodness!
Is it really?
What?
Oh my
It's a
goodness!
masterpiece.
Wow!
Dreams is a masterpiece song.
Outside of the fact they had the coolest video ever with the Blue Angels, you're gonna trash that song? Wow!
No, I said wait. No way. I'm not trashing it. I said I love that.
No,
song.
no. When you start saying with the cheese, that's throwing it to the oven
that
right
song's
there.
An epic, glorious, joyful masterpiece.
Have you seen
the
video?
vocals? Good God, the vocals! Who
have
can
you seen
sing
the video?
that?
So they have a second video, and it was live in Cabo where they're doing Dreams, and
the ranking is just getting worse as y'all talk more about it. I'm sorry. I had a reasonable place to put it in, but I'm not so sure anymore. You know, Why Can't This Be Love is also kind of meh. Best of Both Worlds, cool. I dig that. Love Walks In, yeah, it's okay. After that, like, you know, Inside, sort of a throwaway track. Like, I just. This album does not feel
5150 is great.
5150 is good. Yeah, it just
Summer Nights great.
Yeah, it does not come together as like a full album. It's not as bad as OU 812, but the fact that people put it at S or A for me is crazy. For me, I'm going to put it right in the middle where I think it belongs in the B tier.
Oh my! It's not an album. Right. You can listen to this from beginning to end. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I could listen to it to beginning to end, just like I can.
To be fair, you know? To be fair, that's the proper ranking of Van Hagar albums as I see it. Although I would at least put 5150 in A, but okay, B's not terrible.
Oh my!
I don't think it's terrible at all.
I've got two words for you. You. Hey, baby.
Oh, that's how it starts.
No.
Welcome to the scene.
Really. I mean, how did Mick Jones even allow that? Really?
Yeah, come on, it's a total parody, and it doesn't work.
But listen, at the time when people were having a hard time. How is he going to blend into the band and everything else? And it's like he comes into Hey Baby, and then with the screaming guitar after that from Eddie. You know what? They're together.
I invite anyone who's not listening to these albums to listen to 1984 front to front.
Okay, hold on. That's not even.
And then go straight into 5150, and it's like.
No, I disagree.
You know what?
I disagree.
I think 5150 holds up really well. I've even changed over the years on my view of Why Can't This Be Love? I think that's actually a pretty decent song. Like, it's not my favorite song, but it's got a good groove to it. It's a pretty decent song.
You know, an album is good when you say that's a pretty decent song. I mean, yeah, pretty decent song.
No, I mean it is but I like a lot of other songs better. I mean, 5150 alone, that's just one of the best songs the band ever did.
My first Van Halen
let's see where we go.
Was this took.
Where did you have it, Nick? Just so I feel like I'm not crazy.
LA Forum. Where did I have it? I had it B/C.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. It's an S tier for me, no question.
Yep.
No question.
Not even close.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
This is why we
Nick,
do these. This is why we do these.
We're all getting the albums we wish the other person didn't have, and
really?
Oh, sorry, Nick. I would have loved some more David Lee Roth assistance, but yeah.
All right. Well, Van Halen 3.
You do this to me every time.
This is one of the few albums that deserves a tier below what we have on the screen.
Just call it Van Halen D.
So everything about this album was off. The production, the composition, the performances, the artwork was even chintzy. I mean, it had awful sound. It's plodding. It's boring. The ballads were just sticky, sweet, and horrible. There's an electric sitar solo on this album. Why, Eddie? I mean, I just didn't get it. It was such a massive disappointment. Obviously, you know, Eddie was going through some personal difficulties at the time, and I think that shone through. But he should then not have taken control of this album the way he did. Look, these songs have not improved with age at all. And strangely for me, the best moment on VH3 is probably the song that sounds least like Van Halen, and that would be Without You. It was okay. It had an awful video, but that's the best moment on the album.
It's got a great chorus, but the chorus doesn't fit the rest of the song.
It's okay. But can I just say that How Many Say I is an all-time low moment for Van Halen. I mean,
is that the one he sings? Is that the one he sings?
That's
like
the one that
piano.
Eddie sings lead vocal.
Yeah.
That is so rough.
It's Billy Joel piano ballad gone wrong. Okay, you've got a great singer. You've got a great singer like Gary Sharon. He's just joined the band. Why would you do that? I have no idea.
Let me tell any youngsters that are watching this. This was this is not Spotify era where you can listen to a song or an album and decide this stinks and never listen to it again.
That's right.
I paid money for this album. I went to a store and actually purchased it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then I went home and I had to listen to it a few times to try and justify why I bought it and convince myself to like it.
All 65 minutes.
And I couldn't even do that. I think in my life, I've listened to this album 4 times, and that is after owning the damn thing. I couldn't put it on again.
I wanted to be sick when I heard it the first time because there was such expectation. And Dave was going to rejoin the band, and then he didn't, and then they fought again, and it was off and on. And then I heard, okay, the singer from Extreme. Wow, this is gonna be fabulous.
I thought it was a good match. I liked Extreme at the time. Gary Sharon, I thought was a great singer. You thought it would be okay, but it was a mess.
Apparently,
I put it into my CD player, and I just remember thinking, no, this is awful. So
this is when Gary Sharon joined the band, and apparently they got together and they started jamming to some old Halen with David Lee Roth, and apparently Eddie Van Halen says that Gary Sharon was just knocking it out of the park because he would sing anything, he had the range and everything else. So they were hopeful, I guess, that he was the guy. And while playing old jams was good, it did not deliver. This CD, I think I listened to it 3 times like Roie, except I took it a step further. At the time, there was a place called CD Warehouse that you can take a CD that you bought
and return it,
give it back to them. They'll give you some cash, or you can get another CD, CD.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely returned it. I definitely sold it for something else. Yeah.
Oh, I've still got mine. It hasn't been paid in all these years. Don't you think, Vic? Don't you think on that note though that Gary Sharon was being made to sing songs in the incorrect key for him?
100%.
I think so. Yes. No, it's square peg round hole. It just didn't fit what it didn't. They didn't take advantage of him. Kind of. It's like And listen, somebody's strength could be their greatest weakness. Eddie was all about himself and ego because look at what he had accomplished. But when you get the kind of singer and performer that Gary Sharon was. It wasn't like he was unknown, unexpected. You could have, adjusted your music to a whole lot better for his range and his style. And they didn't. I don't know if that was a reaction to, when Hagar came into the band. Eddie was a lot more acquiescing to Hagar's style and voice. I don't know if he was just reacting to that, where he just wanted to be his way or the highway, which unfortunately
I think
did not work.
That's what was going on here. All right. Well, I think we talked about that album way too much.
Yeah, no kidding.
Am I up next?
That's an album though that would be a D tier selection on anyone's ranking tier list. Period.
100%.
I don't think there's anyone that's going to try to make that more than D. So Women of
Okay.
Color.
All right.
Oh,
Women and children's first. I'm actually glad I got this one.
Uh-oh.
uh-oh.
So yeah, I'm not a fan of this album. I think this is my least favorite album of the David Lee Roth Van Halen era. I know a lot of people like it. I just don't get
Man,
it.
I
I don't
like
think
it.
I don't think it's great. And the Cradle Will Rock is really, really good. That's a classic. And after that, I just think it gets worse and worse by the song. I mean, Everybody Wants Some is just 3 minutes too long. And
What? And then it leaves 2 minutes.
no, that song's like 6 minutes. It takes forever.
5 minutes and 5 seconds.
5 minutes.
And then Fools is okay, and it just goes downhill from there.
Fools
There's
is
nothing that I
good. Romeo
there's
Delight's
nothing-
great.
okay.
Fools is
Loss
okay.
of control. Loss of control.
Loss of Control is awful.
Oh no! What? Loss
Oh,
of Control?
gee.
Song.
Here's your medicine, buddy.
That's
Take
a
it.
great
Terrible
song.
song.
No,
Terrible
Loss of
song.
Control is awesome.
What?
It's like the most
No.
interesting avant-garde thing.
I'm
love
going
it.
to be, because there's another album that goes in C.
my
I'm going to be
goodness.
nice and put this in B.
Oh
But
my
that's as
goodness.
good as-
You're putting
as
in the
good as
same
I
as
can.
50. You think that's as good as 5150?
That's
Well,
not what he's saying. He's
You
putting it in
think
the
that's
tier
as
he
good as
thinks it belongs in.
5150? Come
I
on.
think
no,
it's better than
no.
5150.
I would have put 5150 higher.
Okay, that's okay because now B is full. Therefore,
But
good deal.
You can mess it
The
up.
larger point being, it's not an S or an A in my opinion. I know I may be wrong there. Iconic album cover, picture is great. That's the best I'll say about it.
No, I think you're sleeping on a few of the tracks for sure. But go ahead, Nick. Make
Yeah,
him.
I was just going to say, take your whiskey home. In a simple,
like that
in a
one.
simple rhyme. In a simple rhyme. Possibly their best moment ever.
I know.
Dude, this
Eddie
thing is
Trunk says
filled.
that too.
It's
I don't
filled with
get it.
brilliance. It's an S tier
Nah,
for me.
I don't
It
know.
really is.
It's
I'm
boring.
gonna bump it up if I get the chance. I'm
It's
warning you now.
borderline SA for me. But I mean,
Oh
my
my
top 6 is
goodness.
all David Lee Roth for one thing, and it's I've got it as A, but the top of A.
Oh, wow.
I think it's a great
Yeah,
album.
It's amazing. This is probably
all the other
most-
ones. Well, there's so many better albums still left. That's why I can't.
No, you ranking it there is totally fine, but Vic's assertion that it's worse than a B tier is crazy to me. It's a great album. It may not be your
It's
favorite, that's fine, but everybody wants
outstanding.
some.
my assertion is that it's not even close to 5150, and to put it there, it's kind of like
That's fine.
what?
5150 is throwing you off. Rank it how you would rank it independent of 5150's placement.
Well, that's the
Where
thing.
was it for you?
I
Right.
wouldn't be that high. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just
you have bad
this-
taste in music, Vic. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
you know?
I mean, there's by my estimation, there's at least one or two albums that are more likely to go in C. So I just couldn't put this one in C. That's where I was going
You're a
with it.
reasonable man, Roy. A man of reason.
All right.
Here comes
so
Vic to mess it all up.
Just giving Van Halen one. Yep. There you go.
What are you gonna do with that, Vic?
Man, did I call
Out
that
of
one or what?
Out of spite, I'm going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put it in S tier. How else
Yeah,
can
you
you
have
put
to.
anywhere on
Yeah.
there? I mean, we can talk about this forever, but anybody my age that even knows about an electric guitar, it's because of this album. I mean, how in the world do you put anything with that? Should I say anything else? I mean,
No.
overall as an album from beginning to end, the album is absolutely solid. It's something that they have been working on for a long time as far as all the different songs and everything else, but it just
I have a great story with this. It's so funny. It's so dated. You know how you were talking about 1995 and Sega Genesis and the whole
Yeah.
thing? So I got this album through the Columbia CD house.
Oh, the
about
9 for
that?
1, like the 9 for 1.
How about that?
The record
Yeah.
club.
So
Same here.
obviously, I mean, I was only 4 or something when it came out. So obviously I wouldn't have known about it right off the bat. But as I got older, 10, 11, 12, whatever, some of the iconic songs already because you just do.
Unavoidable.
But I wouldn't have heard the whole album yet. So through that, I got that album. And that's the thing about this album. Even at by, you know, maybe 12 years since it had been released and however old I was, something, I'm not correct with my dates here exactly, but you get the idea. I remember listening to the sound from beginning to end and going, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Even at that point, it's like, there's no era of anybody that listens to this and doesn't think this is not amazing. It just is one of those albums. It is with Back in Black, Dark Side of the Moon, on and on, those albums. What would be really interesting, Kyle, you had messaged me earlier about an idea about taking all our D tier rankings that we've done and doing a wheel of D tier
that'd be
rankings.
cool. That'd be cool.
But it would be just as interesting to take all the S rankings, right? And
oh gosh,
take all the great albums of all time.
I don't know which one I'd rather do. I'm excited about both.
I wonder where, to me, like, I wonder where this ranks when you put it next to, you know, whatever, throw all those albums in, Appetite, Hotel California, like pick all the ones.
This is
and then where does this one go?
This is a genre defining moment. I mean, when he comes out, nobody had that guitar screaming like he did. Nobody was doing what he was what he was doing with the tapping and everything else. Other people were doing it in different styles, but he's the one that just put it all out there. And it was crazy. And it was unlike anything else that was out there. And as debut albums, you know, this is probably, I mean, I'm trying to think of any other debut album that had that kind of impact. You could say in the prog world,
Appetite for Destruction, maybe.
Appetite for Destruction is another one. You could say, you know, in the Court of the Crimson King, you know, as far as like, oh boy, you know, what is going on here? You know, Kill 'Em All. You could say that was, you know, them, you know, Metallica's version. But
those are the albums. Those are the ones that define certain eras. Yeah,
but I mean, this one here, the reason you got guitar sounding like Eddie Van Halen, it's because of this album right here. You know, Yngwie Malmsteen talks about hearing Eruption for the first time. You talk about a guy that can do anything on guitar, and he hears that, it's like it falls to the wall. It's, well, anyways, we've talked about it.
Apparently,
it's a near perfect album.
I mean, it was genre defining. I thought there was only Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Prog. Okay, and then this came out, and it just changed everything for me. You know, forever. And it was as much Roth's voice, that sort of bird-like squeal that he had, as much as Eddie's guitar. Apparently, when they first toured, Eddie would play with his back to the audience so that other guitarists couldn't pick up exactly how he was making these sounds.
That's the ego.
Yeah,
that's the ego.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, Dave agrees with that selection. All right, moving on.
Back. You know, there's also which moment history of rock would you like to most see a band? And for me, Van Halen, like Sunset Strip, like 1978 or whatever, is up there. I'd love to see that band.
Kyle,
okay, this is not as exciting.
Fair warning.
Yeah. Okay. So this is actually a Van Halen album that I hear a lot of people talk about being one of their favorites. And granted, I've already shown my hand here. My top 6, my S and A tier, are all David Lee Roth. I think the 6 albums that he did in sequence are the 6 best albums they ever did. That's my personal opinion. I like the energy of David Lee Roth. I like his songwriting. I just feel like the albums flow better, and they're all around 30 to 35 minutes long, which is just perfect for me. This is one of my least favorite, even though it's got some great stuff on it. And I've heard some people say it's like their favorite or whatever. It's still, though, like, don't get me wrong, it's still an A tier album. So you can go ahead and slot it in A there for me if you want. Unchained is excellent. I love Mean Street. It's great. I don't know.
This is S tier all the way.
Kyle, I don't think so. It's not in my S tier.
You and I are one. I also had it in A.
It's very good. I have it in A tier. My S tier is set, and I won't reveal what those are just yet. But this is a very solid David Lee Roth era album that, for me, is an A tier. That I'd be happy for it to be an S tier. I don't think it deserves to be any lower than that. So I hate the album artwork, whatever that's worth. And I know they don't like
most of their covers. Well, I'd say a good half or more of their covers are terrible.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree.
The first three are good. After that, it just goes like whatever.
From the David Lee Roth era, the first one, this is by far my least favorite album cover. Whatever that's worth, but that's not putting it an A versus S. But
I like the darkness of this album, the heaviness, Mean Streets.
Yep.
Hear About It Later. So This Is Love. Unchained is just the best. No, this is a great record. And it's, to me, it's I'm
putting it an A.
It was a step up after Women and Children, but yeah, okay, A is fine.
I slightly prefer Women and Children to this, but they're kind of 1A, 1B for me.
That's what I don't understand, but you have your right to be to your wrong opinion, so it's all right.
I'd be curious, like what the bulk majority of Van Halen fans would think. I think the majority would vote that David Lee Roth's albums are better than Sammy Hagar's. Like whenever you look up and you're trying to like crowdsource, like I wonder how other people rank these things, just out of curiosity.
No. If you're a hardcore fan,
on average, a top 5 album.
Yes. I'm pretty. I mean, the rankings that I read and research I did, this is top 3, 4 usually.
Yeah.
Ranked. So
I just have an S tier that is very specific, and this is not in it.
Well, your S tier doesn't look like it's going to turn out based on
I don't know
left.
what's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's okay.
Okay, Nick.
Let's go, Rock Nick.
1984. All right. I hope Nick sees
yes,
this album
please.
like I do. I hope so.
Yes, please. Well, I've got to say it's a masterpiece.
This
is the album that turned Van Halen from rock superstars into a household name worldwide.
Agreed.
I'll never forget when I first heard it. It just made me burst with joy and musical satisfaction. It really did. I mean, think about the new heights that they reached with songs like Hot for Teacher and Panama. And yes, Jump. I think Jump, I know it got too much airplay in America. I know that, but it didn't in the rest of the world. And you guys might be overexposed to it, but it is a brilliant piece of work.
There's no way to be overexposed to a song that good. That's like being overexposed to Michelangelo's David. It's just a perfect rock song.
So good. It is just so good. And it's quite proggy in the lead break in the middle. So don't be fooled. That's one of the hardest songs of Alex's to play if you're a drummer. Now, look, do we as proggers have a problem with keyboards? No, obviously not. And I don't think the rest of the world did either when you take the success of this album into account. They conquered MTV with these songs. They didn't disappoint their existing hard rock fan base. The songs were that good that they covered both bases and kept them consistent. The best song, in my opinion, is Jump. I think Panama's a very close second. And I think the rest of the album is simply outstanding as well. The only possible contender for a kind of a worst song or maybe filler is, I suppose, House of Pain. That's the least outstanding moment, but any other band would regard that as a classic track. So it's hugely consistent. What a way for David Lee Roth to end. I think he suffered a little bit from hubris because of the success of the album, and we all know the fights that happened after that. But this album is an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion, and there's no question it belongs in S.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Oh, good.
And
Roie doesn't agree though. But go ahead, Vic. Sorry.
This is an album. This is an album.
No.
It has one of my favorite Van Halen moments ever. I can hear the brothers just jamming out to this. And when they put this together, I want everybody to do yourself a favor. Go listen to the beginning of Girl Gone Bad. That is a full-on metal prog beginning, tightness between the drums and the guitar, just genius, top-notch playing. And it's Hot for it's like these two guys were at a level where it didn't matter who was singing, who else was doing anything. I think Eddie and Alex in this album were as tight as they have ever been. I have it in S tier. I put this from beginning to end. I think this is a little bit stronger than the original Van Halen from as far as the strength of the album and what they bring to the table.
Okay.
But
there's no chance that's no chance that's
I wouldn't agree with that.
Just an opinion.
But,
just an opinion there.
But it's right next to it. to me.
Yeah, no, listen. I agree that's an S tier. That's where I would have put it. But I don't know. I don't know that I consider it a masterpiece. Would be the only thing. I don't
I
think it's a
do.
masterpiece.
I do.
I feel like
There's
it
some
is.
good songs on it, but yeah,
They wrote two
one to me
masterpieces.
is a masterpiece. I don't think this one is. I think this one was just a good. Like they achieved that version of the band. This was their peak. Like they couldn't have achieved more than this. It almost makes sense that it went away after this. I don't know what else they could have done.
I think the band began and ended with two masterpiece albums, and it was their debut, and it was 1984. And I think everything else is sort of like epilogue. So
But
I just said that to upset
okay,
Vic.
so I'm not sure.
That is an opinion.
We have to talk about I'll Wait, by the way. The drum sound on I'll Wait is just unbelievable.
Right.
And they played that when David Lee Roth came back in the band back 2012, 2013, whatever. And I just love that song. And David couldn't sing it at that point, and I get that. But
no, he could not sing it.
He could sing it at 1983, 1984. So
barely.
Love that song. Well, probably barely. Yeah. In a studio, he could sing it with multiple takes. Yeah. Whatever. There's no doubt Sammy's the more technically gifted singer, for sure. That still doesn't change.
That's how wonderful this album is, because my hot take is David Lee Roth, I think, is one of the top entertainers. I'll put him up there with somebody like Mick Jagger, or just, front man who has this image, everybody knows exactly what they're going to get from him. But as far as, Nick gives credit for his compositional contributions, as when he went solo, of course, when you've got, Steve Vai and Bissonette on drums and all that, so it's easy to be Dave when you've got the best musicians behind you. When it comes to his singing style and all that stuff, not my preference at all. But the songs that he's a part of and that he contributed to, and that he's, that he pushed Van Halen into that next stratosphere, you got to respect that. But not my preference when it comes to that. So,
but you've got two of his albums in S tier. So how do you?
Because it's not a solo. If you were to ask me the difference between David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, there's no comparison. But in the context of Van Halen, I have no problem with those albums being an S tier.
And yet, Vic, if you ask Vai and Bissonette, both Bissonette brothers, if you ask them what is Dave like as a songwriter, they will sing his praises to the heavens, and they will say he's a genius. Skyscraper, Good Times, damn good. These are fabulous songs that he's written.
All right, so moving on, we got the last two albums, sort of a weird pairing. Kind
of a weird last two, right?
Yeah,
a little weird.
Like two albums that most people could just take or leave, I think. Pretty much.
I know. I like Diver Down.
All right, Diver Down. I mean, this is me, isn't it?
Yes.
This is my turn. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate this album. I think this album gets a bad rap.
A lot of covers.
It's sort of a mishmash, a lot of covers, some brilliant guitar stuff on here. Just genius guitar work on some of these songs. And I even love Big Bad Bill and Happy Trails. Those are fun. Yeah. So I think A Different Kind of Truth is worse than Diver Down.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I want to put Diver Down in C and then see what happens with this one. So what I'm going to do, this is sort of weird, but what I'm going to do, we discussed this beforehand, just so we're clear. I'm going to put this in B, which allows me to bump up something to A, which allows me to bump something else to S.
Ooh.
There it is.
I'm happy with that.
I thought you were going to move Women and Children first. Didn't you like that album? No? Okay.
Yeah. We'll be a little controversial. Why not? All right, that's what we're doing. I mean, yeah, I like that. To me, that works.
Well, firstly, you can't tell me Diver Down is as good as Women and Children. which it appears to be on this tier. But anyway, the point about Diver Down is that
I'm with you,
that
but
it
I
was
don't know
not
where else
supposed
it
to be
goes.
an album. It was supposed to be
Correct.
an EP, and then Eddie was forced. Well, the guys were forced into making it into a long form album by.
Well, I
by the
did read
label.
about that. Yeah, that the label loved Pretty Woman so much they put it out as a single, and then they had to sort of put an album out around it. But I mean, I actually think I get at the time, if you were Little Guitars, Cathedral is really good.
Yeah.
You know, even sort of Dancing in the Streets, it's a cool version of that song.
Yeah.
Like,
if you didn't know that
You know-
historical context and that they were covers, like, which is not fair because we do know that, as an album from start to finish, it's a great album. Like, I think it's arguably an A tier album, which is where I have it. But again, I'm all David Lee Roth, but it's at the very end of my A tier. But I'm fine with B tier. Some people rank it really low, and I think they're just ranking it based on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it gets a worse rap than it is as an album. I think it comes based on the fact that prior to that, they had released 4 albums that were just straight up rock, like really good albums that fans loved, and they were hoping for a new album, and they were disappointed. Which I can sort of see. If I was at that era, that strong of a fan at that time, I probably would have been bummed. It probably would have been like, this is not what I wanted from a new album. But looking at the overall discography compared to the other albums that are left, I mean, I think it's clearly better than the bottom 3 albums we have there. You know, so
easily, I think.
Easily.
I love Intruder into Pretty Woman. Like, that's to me a classic moment, and I don't see that as cheese. I see, Sammy Hagar singing like, love songs, in the form of a fart. I see that as
that's
cheese,
a great cover.
not
Pretty Woman is a great cover. It is. It just is.
Like, you really got me. You really got me. It was a terrific cover after Eruption.
They had a knack for that. Their covers were really good.
Yep.
All right.
Making
so I think
Motown rock.
Appropriately, the last album by the band
Yeah,
is our last album on the wheel. So Different Kind of Truth. I don't think I left Vic much of what to do, but if you want to make a slight change, I suppose you still could.
Go wild, Vic.
Well,
Go on, Victor.
Come on.
Well, I guess I should talk about this album in as positive as I can. So it's going D tier. I didn't connect with it. I was expecting a certain kind of magic to it, and it just didn't do it. Again, David Lee Roth just not at this point was not something that I felt was better for the band. I had gotten disillusioned with the band because you had something like Balance, which missed the mark for the most part. And this just, after Van Halen 3 and then this, it was clear that compositionally that putting up an album that I was going to be into was not really there. And then personally at this time, my musical taste had totally, shifted from when I was a big Van Halen fan. At this point, it was, a lot of Neil Morse Band and Flying Colors and Transatlantic, a lot of more prog stuff. So it was not something I was interested. So let's go ahead, put it in D.
Yep.
And the only logical move that I can make is put Balance in C.
Yay for Vic.
So
I can live with that.
So yeah.
My exact D and C tier.
What was that? Repeat.
Was that?
That's my exact D tier and C tier, like in order and everything, for what it's worth. So I
think this was probably my entire tier, correct? Like how I would have probably done it.
Yeah,
the only thing
for Unlawful and S is egregious, but it's fine.
I'm unhappy about women and children first.
Yeah, it's too low.
That's sitting too low for me.
What's
Other
funny
than that, I'm happy.
The top 2 tiers, I would swap Carnal Knowledge with 5150, and it would be what I have. And then B and C were kind of mixed. I like Diver Down. I had Diver Down and OU 812 and B, and then I had Women and Children down with with balance. It's Women and Children. It's one of those where it's like, oh, first sing it and then runs out of gas for me. But that's just me.
Can we just say I enjoy every one of these albums except for Van Halen 3, so let's just push that to the side. And I'd like to talk a little bit about a different kind of truth. When it came out, I was really excited about the band. I went and saw them, and David Lee Roth, God bless him, it was not a great show. He had a weird thing where like dogs were running in his backyard behind him, and he was kind of like, he was mostly just sort of talking and narrating songs by that stage in their career. But the songs themselves on A Different Kind of Truth, I think you could argue it's a B tier album, like as high as that, except that he's singing them at the age that he's singing them. And his voice is very beat up at that point. And it's very apparent. But like Tattoo is like a little cheese ball in the lyrics, whatever, but I like it. She's the Woman's great. Chinatown's cool. Blood and Fire's cool. Bullet Head's cool. Like there are good songs, but man, his voice, he's straining for every note he hits, and they couldn't even hide it in the studio. And I think the idea is that a lot of these songs were written back in the like Sunset era, and like
I think
them and
I was going to say Wolfgang found a bunch of tapes and just pulled them out and started jamming with his uncle on drums, and it was like, let's do this.
And Wolfgang is a 17-year-old recording on this. Like at the time, I thought that was like too nepotistic and lame, but like. It's proven to be fine, or whatever.
Turns out he's a good musician. Yeah,
he's good and he's cool.
No, he's
and
great.
So, apologies in hindsight to him, but I like this album. I really wanted to rank it higher than D because when it came out, I loved it, and I went back and listened, and I was like, it kind of stinks.
It's
kind of a D tier
I think the
album.
album suffers from tattoo syndrome because that song, in my opinion, is a stinker, and it got a lot of airplay, and a lot of people wrote the album off because of that song. But actually, there are far better songs on it. I think we need to mention at this point also, though, that Roth co-wrote with the brothers some songs for the Best Of compilation and also for a film. So on the compilation, they wrote "Can't Get This Stuff No More" and "Me Wise Magic," which deserve a mention, even though they're not on the tier here.
Me Wise Magic was actually pretty good.
Also, Humans Being, which was for that.
Humans Being is a
Hurricane
great
movie.
song. I love that song.
Great song.
Yeah.
So my point about David Lee Roth being a songwriter, right? I'll shut up with that.
I agree. This album is proof positive of that because there's a certain energy and whimsy and like fun that comes in with this album, but the brother cannot sing at this stage in his life. So if they could have just done this in like 1988 or something, it would have been awesome, but was not in the cards.
Yeah. You know what? It's not a terrible album. It's just that it doesn't have, you can't replicate that many decades later the vibe and the energy that they had, which is what made those early records great. And now they're doing it as older men and in the studio. They're not out there living and being on the road and play and it just isn't the same. This doesn't have it.
Yeah. Through Blood and Fire has taken on completely new meaning at this age as a geriatric. It's just not the same as it once was.
Right.
So.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're good with the orders of these, actually, the way they are, correct? Each row, I pretty much think that's...
Well, Vic is not going to be okay with A tier, but that's on Vic.
Nope. That'd be my only... But
I think majority, I think
otherwise it's fine. I if you think that Women and Children First is better than Van Halen 2, that's fine. Van Halen 2 for me is an S tier album. I think it's very good and underrated, but everything else is good with me. I like 5150 at the very end of the A tier, but I'm sorry, Vic. I love you otherwise, but
yeah, I think we're good. All right, so another successful Wheel of Prog, Wheel of Rock. God, I really keep messing that up on this one. All right, so let us know what you think. If you're enjoying the Wheel of Rock versions and where we got these right or wrong, and suggestions for future ones. We have a few more coming up. We keep churning these out until we run out of bands, and then we'll do something else. But don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on our socials, progreport.com and all of that. And hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. We'll see you all later.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all our socials and progreport.com. And we'll see you all again real soon. Thanks.